Hello and welcome to the OriginMD channel. In this video we're going to be discussing a deck that's known as Monoblack Control, but in fact plays a little bit more like Monoblack midrange. So we have early threats in Gifted Aetherborn and Seekers Squire that we can put on the table to trade with our opponent auto pressure control. We've got the whole removal suite including Fatal Push, Never to Return and Vraska's Contempt to take out our opponent's threats. We also have some decent amount of hand disruption with Duress and Doomfall to prevent our opponent from realizing the threats against us. And finally we have finishes in Liliana, some other planeswalkers and the Eldest Reborn that enables us to take the creatures or the planeswalkers that we have already destroyed and bring them back to fight for us. How does our deck deal with the most popular aggressive decks in the current season? Well, against the aggressive creatures such as Pommed Courier and Earthshaker Kenra, we've got efficient creatures such as Gifted Aetherborn and removal such as Fatal Push that should carry us in the early game. And against resilient threats such as Krapke's Scrounger, Rekindling Phoenix and Hazard the Thievant, we have some exile and discard effects that allow us to stay in the game until our finishes come online. Against midrange decks, the most popular ones are UB midrange, something like RB midrange and also Golgari Constrictor. So we want to take out their key threats with Fatal Pushes. We want to get rid of their more efficient creatures that are bigger with something like Ravenous Chupacabra. And we want to deal with the finishes with the exile effects, either when they come online with the Vraska's Contempt or with Doomfall before they hit the board. Against control decks, especially UV control or Esper variants, they usually have threats such as Search for Counter, a wall of counterspells, and just some finishes like Teferi and the Torrential Gearhulk. To deal with them, we must first get our Gifted Aetherborn and either early game creatures to threaten them. We need Duress to get rid of their counterspells, and we need some exile effects such as Vraska's Contempt to deal with their other finishes, and something like Gonti the Lord of Luxury to prevent their plan from working out as they had intended. Now, let's discuss each card in more detail. Duress is one of the top 10 most played cards in the current standard. Although mostly it's relegated to the sideboards, it's still good enough to run in your main board, because it usually does have at least some targets and also gives you some information about your opponent's hand. Depending on how often you meet control, you either want more or less of those, but if you have additional Vraska's Contempts or Never to Returns, Duress is one of the main candidates to cut first. Next up we have Fatal Push, and it's definitely a card you want to run in black. It destroys a creature with a converted mana cost 2 or less, so really good against cards like Heart of Kiran and other vehicles. And if you have a permanent that has left the battlefield this turn, then it is also possible for you to destroy a creature with a converted mana cost 4 or less. So that is also going to be quite relevant. Next up we have 3 Walking Ballistas, and they can serve as an additional finisher. You would usually play them for 2, 4, or 6 or some other multiples, and because it can grow and it can damage your opponent in return, just makes it a very versatile threat in your deck. For the 2 drops, we have just one Knight of Malice, and it has actually outperformed compared to what I thought. For example, it can lock out the Scrappy Scrounges because you are able to just get rid of them with First Strike, and Hexproof from white is also quite nice, but I'm not sure that I would run more than 2 of those. Next up we have the Seekers Squire. It's a 1/2 that explores when it enters the battlefield, so either it's going to draw us a land or it becomes a 2/3. Both of these are actually decent enough scenarios, so definitely want to keep them in our deck. We have the Gifted Aetherborn that has Death Touch and Lifelink, and that is extremely relevant against red deck wins because we are able to block most of the creatures they have, as long as they don't have indestructible, and we have lifelink as well, so that allows us to raise them for a bit and also to gain life and stay in the game for a while. I only have one cast down that destroys a non-legendary creature at instant speed, because most of the threats that I see in the current meta are legendary. As for the other ones that are early and mid-range threats, then the cast down can really work, and that is why we are keeping just one of those. If you see more creatures that are non-legendary in the game, then you can definitely increase the count of the cast downs. Next up we have the Torment of Halfa, and for X, apart from 2 black, each opponent loses 3 life unless the player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card from their hand, and this is just a very cute finisher. Also some bonus for lore spoilers, but you definitely don't absolutely need this in this deck. Just something I like to include, and to finish the game with a massive Torment of Hailfire is quite satisfying. Next up for 3 drops we have 3 Doomfalls. Our opponent chooses whatever, well, we choose whatever our opponent exiles a creature they control, or they reveal a hand and we choose a non-land card from it and exile it. So that is going to be widely useful. If we are able to nab something that has graveyard recursion, then the exile is going to be quite important. Also, in the similar vein, we have Never to Return. We can destroy a creature or a planeswalker, and with the Aftermath we can exile a card from the graveyard and create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So that is definitely good for us, because then, as you can see, we've got a lot of removal. We can just use the Eldest Reborn, a saga that makes our opponent sacrifice a creature or planeswalker, then discard a card next turn, and then put a creature or planeswalker from a graveyard under our control. So Never is actually working in this vein, and if you have more Never to Returns, then this is definitely a card to potentially include in the deck. Next up we have Gonti, Lord of Luxury, and when it enters the battlefield we'll look at the top 4 cards. Once you've exiled the card, you can cast it as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend any mana to cast it. So this is one of the ways that you can really spoil the day for control, if you are able to resolve Gonti and steal one of their bombs, or for example if you know that something like Approach of the Second Sun is coming up and you are able to resolve Gonti, then you can really mess up your opponent's day. Next up we have the Ravenous Chupacabra, and if you're running into lots of mid-range lists, then when the Chupacabra enters the battlefield and destroys a creature, this can be extremely relevant. It falls a little bit behind if you're playing against control, but fortunately we have decent enough targets in aggro and mid-range lists, so almost always it will see some value for you. Next up we have Vraska's Contempt, the all-star of standard with black. At instant speed we can exile a creature or planeswalker and gain 2 life as well. So you're going to be using this card and almost always be happy to see it if you have enough mana to cast it. Next up we have Karn, the Scion of Urza, and in this deck it serves as a card advantage engine. So if you're able to resolve it, you can simply draw cards and put silver counters on them, and then your opponent chooses which one goes into the exile with a silver counter, and you can pull them back. Also, potentially you can create the colorless constructs, the same power and toughness as the number of artifacts you have, and that synergizes with the Ballista, but I wouldn't count on it. Overall, it's just a way to have more card advantage. Next up we have the Eldest Reborn that we have already covered the interactions with. You want some of the creatures and planeswalkers of your opponent to go to the graveyard, and you want to revive them in order to use them for your own nefarious schemes, just like Balls himself. Next up we have Liliana. She creates a 2/2 black zombie creature token and put 2 cards from your library into the graveyard, And for -3 loyalty, you can return a creature card from the graveyard to the battlefield. It becomes a zombie as well. And finally, at 7 loyalty, she can destroy all non-zombie creatures and really take over the game by herself. Next up, we have just 2 more cards that possess serious threats to our opponent. We have the Demonlord Belzenlok. So it's a 6/6 flying trample. When it enters the battlefield, you exile the cards from the top of your library until we exile a non-land card, then put that card into your hand. If the converted mana cost is 4 or greater, then we repeat this process and it deals us 1 damage for each card that we are going to draw. So usually by the time we resolve it, we really do want to refill our hand, and it helps us with exactly that and can finish off the game for us. We also have the Noxious Gearhulk. It's a 5/4 with menace, and most importantly, when it enters the battlefield, we may destroy a creature and we can gain life equal to its toughness. So that can really help us in mid-range matchups. As for the lands, we have 4 Deserts of the Glorified that enters the battlefield tapped and either add 1 black mana or we can cycle the way if we have too many lands. We also have the Ifnir Deadlands, and for 4 and tap we are able to sacrifice a desert, and that includes the Desert of the Glorified, and put 2 -1 counters on a creature an opponent controls, and we can activate this ability only as a sorcery. So that can also be useful to shrink back indestructible creatures, or the ones that we cannot really deal with all of our removal, although that is a little bit unlikely. We have 16 basic mobs. We have 2 Fields of Ruin that can destroy a non-basic land an opponent controls, so something like a Search for Roscoe is definitely a target for a Field of Ruin. And finally we have the Scavenger Grounds that for 2 a tap and a sacrificing a desert can exile all the cards from all the graveyards. So against something like a Scrapheap Scrounger, or against something like a Graveyard Recursion deck, this is definitely something that we want. And this is the deck, so let's play. Alright, we are going first, and we've only got 2 lands here, but we've got some early interaction. Hopefully we'll be able to draw into more lands, so I think I'm going to keep this. Alright, let's see what our opponent has in store. Trashing Brontodon, Rangers, Branchwalkers. Okay. And our opponent doesn't seem to be mana screwed at all, so that's not going to be too easy. Let's go ahead and play out our Walking Ballista. So at least we've got some deterrent. Okay, Branchwalker. Alright, gets a land. Okay, good. So we've got ourselves a Doomfall that we can use on our opponent's hand. So what are the juiciest stuff that he has? He has the Jade Knight Ranger and the Brontodon that are problematic. So both of these are trouble. Let's get rid of the Brontodon here, since our opponent seems to have more than enough of the Explore package, so not much we can do about it. Or if he plays out the Jade Knight Ranger, then we can sacrifice the Walking Ballista to deal 1 damage to the Branchwalker and activate the Fatal Push Revolt. So there's that. Our opponent can attack for 2 with impunity, not going to block. Go to our turn. Okay, so I'm guessing we just say go. And when our opponent attacks, we sacrifice the Walking Ballista and use the Fatal Push. Alright. Remove the counter, deal 1 damage. Fatal Push is activated. And now our opponent can cast the Tishana's Wayfinder. Alright, gets himself another one. That's also fine. So let's play out Karn. I think I'm even going to go for the +1 ability, because then it's a beefy 6. And if our opponent gives us a land, that's going to be good. Alright. So that means that we'll be able to play out the Eldest Reborn and make him sacrifice one of the creatures that comes into play. If we want to bring something back, then the Jade Light Ranger seems to be good. Alright. Okay, our opponent just goes for the Juggler. But we'll be able to use the Eldest Reborn to get back Karn, should we want to. So now we've got a guaranteed sacrifice from our opponent. So, value all around. He's going to have to discard a card as well. And if we get one more land, we'll be able to play out the Noxious Gearhulk. So far so good. We also have information about the Ravenous Chupacabra. Okay. Wild Growth Walker seems to be a good target to get rid of. More Explore, gains life, grows. Discards the Chupacabra. So thank you very much for that. Let's go for the Seekers Squire. Yes, please. We would like that in our library. Oh, better cancel that with Z. Okay. Explores into Path of Discovery. Should we double block here? I think not. I think I'm fine with taking 3 damage. 15 is okay. Let's see our opponent's graveyard. We could get just a Ravenous Chupacabra here and get rid of the Wild Growth Walker, actually. That could be some decent value here. So using our opponent's creatures against himself. Play out Liliana, create a zombie token as well.
Ah, the living are just so neat. Oh, this is fun.
Okay. And then no attacks, just play defense. I think we are still in quite a decent shape. Our opponent is free to do those shenanigans. And we can double block anything that they send our way. Then we can reanimate as well. He attacks straight to the face. So I think I'm fine with taking 3 damage here. The wise choice would be to get rid of the zombie. Yep, because of the ultimate. So let's go ahead and just continue building Liliana. Okay. No attacks. Alright, Branch Walker that is going to explode twice, thanks to Path of Discovery. A Winding Constrictor. Alright. So how do we block here? I think I'm fine with blocking like this and like that. Okay, Gifted Aetherborn is also quite nice. Unfortunately, the Chupacabra is in our opponent's graveyard, so not going to be able to bring it back, I'm afraid. Or did it go to ours? Nope, didn't go to ours. Okay. Let's go ahead and create some more zombies. A Chupacabra that we can reuse. That's going to be useful. So let's play out the Gifted Aetherborn. No attacks. Okay. If he attacks, we can get our Chupacabra. To block. Alright, doesn't block. But we've now got pretty much lots of things that we can do. Let's just go ahead and play out the Noxious Gearhulk. Let's earn ourselves some life. I think we've got a decent hold of this hand, of this game here. 35 cards, so we can still go for +1, should we want to. Do we want to get something back? We could actually just get the Ravenous Chupacabra, yeah. I think I'm fine with just taking the Chupacabra here, since we don't want the Winding Constrictor to stack with his triggers for Explore. Attack with everything. That leaves our opponent at 16. And we've got pretty much everything we need to close out the game. Okay. Fatal Push is not going to matter. And by spending black, I think he had precluded himself from using the Ifnir Deadlands. So let's go ahead and use the Demonlord Belzenlok. Okay. Got ourselves 2 cards. That's not too bad. Let's go ahead and attack with everything. Leaves us, our opponent at 1 life exactly. +1 Liliana.
Servitude. Think of it as...
And should be good game. Okay. Jade Light Ranger is going to trigger 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And that's it. We've got a little bit of... Okay, our opponent goes first. So I think that's still a keep. Alright. Just plays out white. That's fine. Just black from us. Several exhibition. Okay, so going to be some white tokens. Let's go ahead and explore with the Seekers Squire. Say go. Anoint the priest. Alright. So we've got Never. And I think that's actually not such a bad thing. Let's force our opponent to embalm the Anointed Priest. Before he puts and plays out something different. And if he doesn't embalm, then we have Never to return. Okay, so we've got the return. It can only be played as a sorcery, right? He cannot embalm in response. Angel of Invention. Okay. Fabricates. Attacks for 2. Let's go ahead and play out the Gifted Aetherborn. Oh, I should have gone for the Walking Ballista for 2. So my bad here. Well, we're just going to still get rid of the Angel of Invention. Say go. Then we're going to use Eldest Reborn to get back the Angel. Crested Sunmare, also a problematic spell. Fortunately for us, we have 2 Eldest Reborn, so let's go ahead and play it. Our opponent has to sacrifice one of the server tokens. We're going to say go. He's not going to attack with the Crested Sunmare because we can block with the Gifted Aetherborn. Okay, has an Anointed Procession and has an Argorge Fest. Okay. So we cannot make him discard. But we have the Walking Ballista and we can get rid of the server tokens. So let's see. We can cast the Ballista for 3. We can discharge the tokens. Then say go. Alright. Gain some life. Can create some decent amount of tokens with the Crested Sunmare. Does it again. And does it once more. Okay. He is going to have to discard a card though, so let's look at our opponent's graveyard, and I definitely want the Angel of Invention. So let's go ahead and put 2 counters on it. So I think we attack. Do we attack with our Gifted Aetherborn? I think we do have another one, and we can cast everything out, so let's just attack with the Gifted Aetherborn, damage our opponent, play out the Gifted Aetherborn, and play out the Eldest Reborn, since our opponent is going to have to sacrifice his horse, and end the turn. Okay, destroys all creatures with power 3 or greater. Plays out the Sacred Cat. Pays 2 life. Alright. Seals us just fine. Has to discard a card. So I think we attack with the Walking Ballista. And then we grow it twice. Now the question is, what are we going to reanimate? Do we want our opponent's Angel of Invention or the Crested Sunmare? I think the Angel of Invention sounds like a better deal. Alright, so now we're going to get a bazillion of tokens. Strom's Expertise to boot. Alright, 12 tokens. Sounds good to me. Let's look at the opponent's graveyard. Let's get the Angel of Invention. Let's put the 2 counters on it. And then say go. Alright, hidden stockpile. Always a good thing to have. Gets the 4 cats. Alright, attacks with everything, that's also fine. So let's go ahead and say yes to the blockers. He is likely going to sacrifice the token that is attacking the Angel of Invention so that we don't gain life. So we're going to put the counters on a Ballista. And we're going to discharge a few of those counters as well. Okay, and once more. That should do it. Alright, interesting. Our opponent is going to pay. He's going to use the Fatal Push. So let's go ahead and remove the counters to hit our opponent directly. Alright, let's go ahead and attack. So we can only do it for one. So that's not going to work quite well. He gets to transform the Argos Bloodfast. So now he can tap and sacrifice a creature, but they are only one of his creatures. Let's go game. Early game here, but most importantly we've got the 2 blacks, so I think it's okay to keep this hand. Opponent mulligans to 6. We'll play out the swamp. Okay, red. So yeah, I think I don't mind just playing out the Gifted Aetherborn. Maybe we'll be able to get in for 2 and gain 2 life. Alright, scrap his Scrounger. So that is going to be fine. Now the question is, do we look at our opponent's hand? And I think in this particular case, I don't mind just looking at our opponent's hand. Perhaps getting something very interesting there. And indeed, we do have the Rekindling Phoenix. That would have been problematic for us. But since we have the Eldest Reborn, hopefully we'll be able to get some of the creatures from our opponent's graveyard when they die. Okay. Hits for 6, so I think I'm fine with going for the Gifted Aetherborn. No attacks. And if our opponent wants to trade, I think I want this Crappy Scrounger. Because he has no creature cards in the graveyard and cannot bring it back. So I think getting one more land is going to be crucial for us. Okay, our opponent has all the cards he needs. Alright, we can make him exile the Uncrop Crusher. I think I don't mind going for the rest first. Seeing what our opponent has, it's going to be a Bombed Courier. So, do we exile it? Or do we make him exile one of his Uncrop Crusher? Alright. We could attack for 4, he's going to attack for 8 in response then. Nope. We do gain 4 life, of course, but just doesn't seem worth it. He can also get more cards on the Bombed Courier, so missing this one land drop, making us unable to go for the Eldest Reborn, is really going to hurt us. Alright. No surprises here. Okay, that was pretty interesting. Quite surprised our opponent didn't do anything else. Let's go ahead and draw. We do need our next land drop. Okay. Desert of the Glorified. No attacks. Two damage to the face. And can now bring back the Scrappy Scrounger. So blocking it is probably not such a good idea anymore. Okay. I think I'm just going to take the damage. So do we draw some more? Or do we get back our Ballista? Or do we create a colorless token? I think we need a token just because. And the Eldest Reborn. He's going to sacrifice the Scrappy Scrounger. But then we will be able to use something like a cast down to be able to kill one of his creatures. Unfortunately, cast down is not going to hit the Hazoret. Deals the damage to us. Okay. So we can make him sacrifice once more. Not much we can do outside of that. Create another construct. No attacks. Let's see what else our opponent has top decked. Our Torment of Halfa can hit only for 4. Alright. Shocks himself. I don't think he will be able to do this in response. He is.
I'll make use of that later.
Okay. So the Torment of Hailfire for 4. Or the cast down. I think we're just going to let our opponent play his game. But we are dangerously low on life, thanks to Hazard. And I definitely wouldn't mind any of our 3 Vraska's Contempt. Doesn't do anything. So in this case, let's go for the cast down on the Scrapyard Scourger, so that we have at least something that we can bring back. For sake. Okay, we cannot bring it back. So I think we're just going to use the Scavenger Grounds. Exile the desert. So this way he cannot bring back another one. Seems sort of pointless anyway.
Evil cannot withstand a righteous army.
Where's my f***ing Vraska's Contempt? Okay, attacks with everything, so we're going to have to do it like that. We're up to 9 life. So we've got 7, so that means that our opponent has to go for 5, or we can get back Liliana. I think I want to exchange for Liliana.
What was lost is now returned.
Just create the zombie.
You're standing in my way.
That can chump block Hazard.
Oh, look what I found.
Let's see what our opponent has. He's going to discard something with the Hazard, most likely. Right, has a shock. I think we block here. Gain 2 life. Okay, Noxious Gearhulk is not too bad, but we could also just shrink him with the Ifnir Deadlands. But I think I'm just going to use Liliana's +1 for now.
Nothing is more loyal than the dead.
Just to create more beef. And we also have the Ravenous Chupacabra if we want to. Now, I think I want to use the Ifnir Deadlands to simply... Yep, to do that. And get rid of the Scavenger Grounds. Say go. Alright. Soulscar Mage, so he can get back his Scrappier Scrounger. But that also means that we'll be able to get our Noxious Gearhulk. Though most likely he's just going to attack with everything, so... Should we get some additional life from the Gearhulk? Yeah, I think so. Our Noxious Gearhulk is also going to be with 4 toughness. So that means that he will be able to block Hazoret without dying. That's also quite nice.
Death is ever present.
Let's create another zombie. Still alive for now. Had a really explosive start, but he was being a little too careful and conservative with Hazoret, not really attacking our Gifted Aetherborns. So has just 1 card in hand. Okay. Field of Ruin. So that is going to enable us to get rid of the Dragon Skull Summit. We can also use the Ifnir Deadlands to get rid of Hazoret for good. So we've got quite a few options. Thinking I just want to get rid of Hazoret, to be completely honest. And if our opponent uses it to get the Scrappier Scrounger back, that's not going to be much of a problem. Okay, discards a card. So the final damage coming our way. Let's go ahead and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Field of Ruin. I'm going to sacrifice it to get rid of the land. In response, he's going to use the Scrappier Scrounger, and then I can use Liliana to bring back the Chupacabra to get rid of the Scrappier Scrounger. And then he won't have any more creatures there. So this is the play. And after that, we're just going to swing for victory. I'm pretty sure that our Torment of Halfa is going to be enough to finish the game next turn. And that looks like this is going to be exactly that, unless our opponent concedes, of course. He is not going to concede. He is going to concede. Okay. We are going first, and tentatively it is a keepable hand, because we are able to play out our lands and have the Gifted Aetherborn to put on some pressure on our opponent. And we also have Walking Ballista at the very worst. For the third drop we also have the potential Doomfall, and having another land is also quite a nice touch. So let's go ahead and play out the Gifted Aetherborn. since our Cabal Stronghold is not going to be of that much use. Okay. Interesting. Black and green. And a Spore Crown Thudded. Alright. Let's play out the Cabal Stronghold. We have the Doomfall that we can use either to make our opponent sacrifice it, but of course we can attack. You never know, maybe an opponent is going to block, but that's not going to happen. And since he is playing Thudded and black and green, it is safe to say that our opponent is playing a Saproling deck. So it is possible for us to just take our Thudded straight away, since it buffs the creatures quite nicely. Okay, Song of Frailties, interesting. Our opponent doesn't have any creatures yet, so that is good news for us. The bad news is that we are quite screwed in terms of mana. We were not able to hit our 4th land drop effectively. So let's see what our opponent is going to do. We've got 4 cards in our hand currently that need even more. Right, interesting. A Fungi Spore. So does our opponent have another one to finish off the night? Yep, he does have the Fungal Infection. So that means that he's going to get his 2 Saprolings. Meanwhile, we are in trouble. We now have 5 cards that we cannot cast because we had missed our land drops. The only saving grace for us is that our opponent has only got 2 lands as well. So let's go ahead and play out our Walking Ballista for only 2 mana. Our opponent is going to have 2/2 Saprolings that attack us for 4. Fortunately, we were able to put on some... Alright, interesting. One more Song of Frailties. So our opponent can now cast something for 2. Or perhaps wait for the next turn. We'll see what our opponent is going to opt for. Okay, finally, we have our 4th land drop. So what are we going to do? Do we go for Gonti or do we attack straight away? I think we go for Gonti and have a look at what our opponent has. Oh wow, we're actually helping our opponent instead, because these are all things that are not lands. Well, maybe our opponent just runs very little lands in the list, who knows. So what are we going to take? We can take out the Yavimaya Subherd, since we don't want our opponent to go for too many things. Or we can take out the Vicious Offering so that we are able to get rid of potentially bad creature like the Spore Crown Thudded for us, or maybe even something like a Tendershoot Dryad. Our opponent can now cast something for 4 mana. So it's going to be a Subherd, okay. Creates another Saproling. So let's see what it's going to mean in the end. It's our turn. I don't think we are in a position to go ahead and attack this turn. I think we want to leave the Vicious Offering for bigger threats as well. So the question is, what do we do? And let's go for a Duress. And wow, we get some information, but that's not good information for us. No, not very good news. So he mostly has creatures. We have the information that says that we don't attack, except for maybe our Gifted Aetherborn to gain some additional life. Gonti as well, because it has Death Touch and we can trade for all those tokens. Instead, our opponent is just going to take it, so we can go for another Walking Ballista. Now Karn's tokens can potentially be 3-3, which is not too bad. Meanwhile, our opponent's Song of Freylies is going to enable him to attack. We're going to have to take the damage. And the Supperling Migration, something that I would have liked to get rid of with our Duress. Our opponent is not attacking, very interesting. So we are now at 5, and the question is whether we want to commit to Liliana or Karn to better suit our advantage. And I think that having Liliana out is going to be decent enough. Potentially we want to protect her and to grant ourselves the Liliana's ultimate. So being able to get rid of all the board that our opponent has is going to be the key to winning the game, most likely. So let's see what our opponent is going to go for. Okay, our opponent didn't have another untapped land, has an Evolving Wilds instead. So let's see what our opponent is going to pull. Okay, it's going to be a forest, it seems. He's going to attack, but attack quite conservatively. So potentially here, in order to save it, of course we are going to block with our creatures that are not going to be of that much use. So we can block like that, and I think we can safely sacrifice the Walking Ballista to get rid of one of the tokens. Okay. So the damage goes through, our Liliana is safe, our opponent's pretty scary creatures after all those Song of Freylies have been cleaned up a little bit. Let's go ahead and create another zombie token, get 2 cards in our graveyard. Actually, our Moment of Craving would have been a little useful. I had gotten rid of it in the later version that you had seen, but still the core is going to be the same. I think it was actually after this game that I had removed the Moment of Craving and the Cabal Strongholds. So Slimefoot the Stowaway, this is going to be a pretty interesting card. Opponent is going to attack the Planeswalkers, he's going to attack Karn. That is quite interesting. So the question is whatever we want to block with our construct. Our opponent is a little bit indecisive. So we can block with double block with a zombie token, since we are sure that we can get rid of our opponent's creatures. And hopefully our Liliana will be able to ultimate soon, so all the creatures are going to die except for the zombies. Our opponent is now at 4 mana, so that's good on him. Okay, we've got the Vicious Offering and the Vraska's Contempt, should we want to use them. I'm not sure I want to use the Vraska's Contempt here, but okay. Let's just get rid of the Slimefoot Stowaway to prevent our opponent from getting some nasty damage in. So let's go ahead and use Karn as well. Go for +1 to draw additional cards. Our opponent chooses the land for us to draw, which is all fair game. Okay, a subhead from the opponent, so he is building up the presence. But of course for us it's going to be more important to have Liliana use her ultimate, so we don't mind as long as the damage doesn't get through, and having the Planeswalkers on board is going to ensure that we can weather the storm. We can even cycle away Desert of the Glorified here, in hopes of getting something better. Okay, so Liliana we can go for +1 again, create a zombie and get 2 cards in the graveyard. Right. Let's go ahead and use Karn's ability as well. Alright, even more lands. Not going to complain much. Let's play out the Gifted Aetherborn to be able to block no matter what our opponent does with the creatures. Okay, has a Spore Crown Thallid. Now the question is whether we want to use the Vicious Offering here or we are just fine with our opponent continuing this and just using Liliana's ultimate. Right, we also have the Ifnir Deadlands. So let's go ahead and +1 Liliana once more. This way we'll be able to get some additional zombie tokens, and the silver counters we can get back our Seekers Squire. This way we can also explore and see what's next. Maybe even hit something like land to be able to draw it instantly. Yep, that's exactly what's going to happen. So let's see what our opponent is going to do. For now we're just playing tower defense, waiting for our opponent to commit. So, a Tendershoot Dryad, and this is definitely a very nice target for the Vicious Offering, but unfortunately for our opponent, unfortunately for us, we already have Liliana, so there is really no need to do anything. We just have to block with our creatures that are going to die anyway, just keeping our zombies alive. And then we'll be able to wipe the board completely. Alright, the blockers have been declared. We can also sacrifice our Walking Ballista after we had put a counter on it, so we can remove them and attack directly into our opponent. And it looks like this is going to be a good game for our opponent once Liliana destroys everything. Alright, we'll let the damage triggers resolve. Our turn. Tendershoot Dryad creates a token, and it's our victory. Okay. Our opponent goes first, and we've got 4 lands in our hand, but I think we're going to keep this because we are able to get the Duress in and to have a look at our opponent's hand. And for turn 2 we've got some good stuff. Okay, so Lightning Strike and Eldest Reborn. So we are up against black and red midrange. Might be a vehicle deck as well. And Heart of Kiran enters the battlefield. So we've got 2 mana. And I think I might have made a mistake because it's actually, the Heart of Kiran is legendary. So he is going to be able to crew the Heart of Kiran here. Yeah. Just going to cycle away the Desert of the Glorified. And what we get in return, we only get ourselves a land. Okay, so our opponent has really expensive creatures right now, and it looks like we have the Fatal Push and the Cast Down. So let's play out the Gifted Aetherborn, and then we can use the Fatal Push on the Heart of Kiran when he crews it. He's either going to play out another creature, or he's going to crew just like that. Alright. So he attacks for 4, but even before that, so that we don't waste much time, we're just going to Fatal Push the Heart of Kiran and prevent the attack. So that allows us to attack, and now we've got a choice. We can either Doomfall and make him exile his Scrappiest Crown Jewel, look at the hand, and we're going to do the latter. And actually, we've got the Chandra Torch of Defiance. So that is potentially a really serious threat to us. So no, we are not going to be letting our opponent resolve it. So we are on 5 mana and our opponent is a little bit mana screwed. And we are more than happy to let our opponent attack for 3. He also cannot block anyway because of the Scrappy Scrounger's ability. Meanwhile, we'll be able to resolve Karn, and we'll be able to use Karn's +1 ability to draw 2 cards and let our opponent choose what we get to keep. So he naturally chooses that we get to keep the Swamp, and a Gifted Aetherborn enters the exile with a silver counter in it. Our opponent is going to attack into Karn, so deals 3 damage to Karn, but he is quite tanky. And our opponent is screwed while we are flooded. And we see that we are able to use Karn's ability. The question is which one. And I think that going for +1 with Karn again is going to be relevant since we have so much land and now we even have 1 more. So let's go ahead and attack our opponent. We're going to attack for 2, gain 2 life, and then we can Doomfall probably our opponent's hand. Our Karn is still going to survive for a while, or we can Doomfall our opponent's Scrappy Scrounger, so that we are sure that it won't get back. Does our opponent have something in response? Yes, he does have Shock, so he will be able to get the Scrappy Scrounger to the graveyard rather than the exile. Interesting. He actually has to sacrifice it, so I wonder how the triggers worked in this, but he's finally able to hit his 3rd land. So he gets some energy and plays out PNLR. And it's another legendary creature, so we are not able to use Cast Down. So creates a token and we just press end the turn. Okay, we've got the Ifnir Deadlands. In the exile pile we have 2 cards and one of them is the Gifted Aetherborn. The problem is, what do we do with our Karn? So let's go ahead and go for +1 again, so that we are able to draw some more. We hit Duress and never, so our opponent is probably going to let us have the Duress. No, actually he just lets us have never. Interesting, it might be because he wants to be able to use the unlicensed disintegration that he currently has. So the question is, what are we going to do? He can pump his token quite significantly with the PNLR's ability. So I think that going for never here is going to be quite relevant, and then we can use the cast down on the token itself as well. Okay, then we're going to attack for 2. Leave our opponent at 12, we are up to 21. Our opponent goes for the Scrappy Scrounger, but that is still going to be fine because we can play out Liliana. We can use her +1 ability to get ourselves a zombie and also to get 2 cards in our graveyard, and one of them is going to be a land as well. So let's go ahead and +1 Karn as well. Hope that we can get rid of this mana flood that we have. Okay, a Duress and a land. Not really what we were looking for, but I guess that our opponent has it worse. He has been sitting on 3 lands only, and now he can attack, but first he can use the unlicensed integration to get rid of the zombie. However, even this damage is probably not going to be good enough to impact the game at the current stage, since we are up at 20 life. We've got 2 planeswalkers on the field, and overall the advantage is just probably too much at this point. Okay, our opponent has his 4th land, attacks Karn, and concedes.